The more we introduce tools, technology, and artificial intelligence, we are going to have this like deep desire for more human connection.
That is Pete Larkin. You may know him as a master marketer in the fintech realm, but Pete is so much more than that. Pete is a builder at heart. Whether it's constructing dynamic brands, developing businesses, or engaging in major DIY projects, Pete is always at the forefront of creation.
Really what I'm hoping to do is to help individuals, families, organizations to actually reach the outcome and be able to measure KPIs better.
Not only is Pete interested in adding value in this business world, but he also puts a huge emphasis on mental health and bettering his relationship with his wife and his kids.
Sadly, therapy gets kind of a bad rap that it's for broken people or people with problems. And in my opinion, it's kind of the opposite. It's for the people who are trying to be strong, stay strong, and who are willing to look for some outside help to be more healthy.
Pete's ability to work with others and elevate people around him is something to look up to.
When we build together, we grow together. Let's surround ourselves with all of the talent around us and let's learn from each other. Let's build together and grow together.
So stick around, because throughout this episode, and specifically at the end of this episode, Pete is going to give you strategic and tactical advice on how to find your target audience and what to do next.
First, I'd say when it comes to targeting, you have to know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Digital Revolution Podcast. I'm your host, Eli Adams. Today's episode is brought to you by FireUsMarketing.com, where SEO solutions pave the way to digital excellence. In today's episode, we're joined by Pete Larkin. Pete is not just a visionary in the fintech realm, he's a builder at heart. Whether it's constructing dynamic brands, developing businesses, or engaging in major DIY projects, Pete is always at the forefront of creation. He currently spearheads the go-to-market strategy at Parlay, his latest fintech startup, as well as serves as the community chair of the Silicon Slopes marketing chapter, where he nurtures a community of marketing professionals. Under his leadership, Parlay has seen a significant uptick in its market presence. He has been instrumental in orchestrating high-impact marketing campaigns recognized across the industry. Recently, he has been pioneering initiatives at Parlay to harness AI for enhancing customer engagement and conversion rate, showcasing his belief in data-driven decision-making and leading with innovation. Pete's dedication to his craft extends beyond the boardroom. You might catch him playing pickleball with his son, rock climbing with his daughter, or mountain biking with friends, embodying the spirit of balance and leadership. Join us as Pete shares his insights on scaling businesses, the future of marketing strategies, and fostering community engagement in the ever-evolving digital landscape. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Thanks, Eli. Man, I felt like that bio was beautiful, and I'm going to cry a little bit.
Feel free to just let some tears out, and then we'll move on. But doing a little bit of homework, learning about who you are and stuff. Like I know who you are from LinkedIn. Like we've communicated a lot. We've shared each other. We talked to each other on posts and stuff like that. So you're not a stranger. But as I started to dig into a little bit more about who Pete was, at least in the business realm, man, I'm really impressed. You've done some really good things. You're super humble. You're very confident. You're very knowledgeable, which makes me really excited to dive in today's episode and to get a little bit of the personal side as well of like who Pete is. So if we can just like jump right into it, tell us who you are. Who is Pete?
Yeah, hopefully that perception still stands after our call today.
I'm sure it will.
It's funny because that question, like, it just brings so many things to my mind. Who is Pete? I think I'm still figuring that out, man. I'm still figuring that out. Of all of the things, of all of the titles, I think that I could choose from, of all the things I've done, am doing, want to do, I think my favorite title is just dad. And I also think that, with that is, husband, because I believe when the kids are out of the house, it's just you and your spouse, right? So while dad is the thing I choose, husband's first, right? And so when I say dad, like husband's wrapped into that. But I think that relationship, with my wife is it's the number one. So, who's Pete? I think first and foremost, like I'm a husband and I'm a dad. So those are my
I
favorite
love
things,
that.
and everything else about me derives from those things, right? all
Hmm.
all of the other things that I do in my career, and even the things I'm doing for fun, a lot of it is built into kind of that identity as a
Yeah.
husband and father.
That's powerful, man. Like, thinking about like, I do want to dive into like where you grew up and all that, because I think that who we are now is obviously a reflection of everything we've been through, and you must have had some good examples in your life to make you believe that, these principles you're talking about of being a husband and a father. And I agree with you. I'm on the same page. I feel like those are like at the top of the pyramid. But if we dive down a little bit deeper in the past of like where you grew up, what you want to be when you were little, what examples did you have that made you believe what you believe now, and really who you are as that husband and father?
Yeah, I said at the beginning, I'm still kind of figuring that out. Who is Pete? And it's when I say that, I'm not, like, it's not a joke. I laugh, but it's serious because, my wife and I, we go to therapy. We have a therapist, and we consider our therapist as like a mental health coach, and in such a way is like you go to the gym or you try and eat healthy before you have significant problems, or like you go in for checkups ideally before you find out that you have some sort of terminal illness. And similarly, we try to get ahead of any potential problems. So it's like a proactive therapy for us. In fact, I don't feel like we have a problem that we're trying to solve, or like that we have issues in our relationship, as much as we want to continue to fortify our relationship. And so it's a proactive, maybe preventative type of therapy. And going back to that comment of like I'm still figuring out who I am. I learned stuff about myself in therapy that I didn't really realize before. And going back to my response of who's Pete, my husband and father, it's because I've learned in the last couple of years that almost everything I do subconsciously and consciously derives from that identity that I um, relate to and identify with the most, being a husband and father. And so, um, it's critically important to me. And I think that sadly, therapy gets kind of a bad rap, that it's for broken people, or people with problems, or for, weak people. And in my opinion, it's kind of the opposite. It's for the people who are trying to, be strong, stay strong, and who are willing to, you know, look for some outside help to be more healthy. So,
I applaud you for having that perspective. Nick Staggy and I talked about this on the podcast when he was on a couple episodes ago, and I think really normalizing that is important. A lot of the bigger podcasters that I listen to, like Ed Milet and Pedro Sculia, and those, like a lot of really big, people who make $100 million to $1 billion a year, every single one of them have a therapist, and every single one of them talk about it openly. And I wish that we could get that more recognized, in public, so people weren't ashamed of it. And I love the approach of being proactive, instead of waiting until there's a problem. So I applaud you for doing that with your wife. You guys are courageous, and you're blazing a path for others, and hopefully other people will listen to this and be like, yeah, I think that's a great idea, I'm going to do it as well. So good for you, man.
oh, thanks, man. I think it also has to do with, that personal identity that I connect with the most has a lot to do with growing up and my past. So maybe call it a segue, but I grew up in South Dakota. Not many people know someone who is from South Dakota. When I tell people that I'm from South Dakota, their typical response is like, "Really? I think you're the only person I know from South Dakota." And so, yeah, I'm here in Utah from South Dakota. I loved growing up in South Dakota. It was the best. Lived out in the middle of nowhere near Remberg, South Dakota, outside of Sioux Falls. And our closest, I mean, we had a lady, she's super old. She lived like literally right next to us, right next door. But aside from her, who like very rarely left her house, our closest neighbor was 2 miles away. And so for me to go hang with my friends, I'd jump on my bike. And these were also during the times when you just tell your mom, I'll be back by dinner. And like, there's no real other concerns in the world, or no like worries about being abducted or evil things or evil people doing something to you. So you just back by dinner, and then you're out and you're just out playing. I jump on my bike right up this hill and go play with my friends. We moved from that house to a different part in South Dakota, McCook Lake area. And so we had this lake in our backyard. And like, we were not affluent. Like, we did not have money. But like, we were rich in experiences. Uh, we we had this house that backed up to a lake. Again, it was not like a fancy, like super nice house. It was also in the middle of South Dakota, so you can find that kind of thing for an affordable price. And so we go out into the backyard. We'd swim across the kind of like this. The lake kind of did a horseshoe, and our part of this horseshoe was pretty skinny, maybe 100 yards or so. So we'd swim across the lake, and then on the other side of the lake, there were all of these kind of like this little forest, kind of woods, and like a nature preserve type area. And we would just go out there and just build forts and like almost Lord of the Flies type living. Like, you're just out there, like, who knows if you're coming back with your shirt or whatever, you know what I mean? So that was like, summertime was awesome. It was incredible. And then in the winter, the lake would freeze over. And so we would, ice skate, play hockey, everything you can imagine, snowmobile, build igloos, all these things on the ice that were just a blast. So childhood was awesome. Sadly, things didn't totally work out for my parents. They ended up splitting. They got a divorce. My dad left a pretty successful career in South Dakota because my mom wanted to relocate here to Utah, where she had family. So she relocated here, and my dad wanted to be close to us, and so relocated with us, and had to pretty much uproot his career. This was not during the time where you could have virtual work from home type thing. You had to be there. So when you left, you're completely, leaving that job unless they have other offices through wherever you are. So it was in the days of Gateway Computers. Some people remember that, some people won't. It's the cow logo, right? So my dad worked for Gateway Computers, had a great career, and then had to leave that, came out here to Utah, started building out another career here, and found a job, new company, and then my mom started dating someone from California, and so pretty quickly we moved out to California. And my dad's like I literally just got a new job, and so he, being a great dad, wants to be close to us, so moves out to California with us, and we're there for a couple of years. And he ends up remarrying my stepmom. She's incredible. I love her. Another mother figure in my life. Getting used to that whole situation was a bit tricky. Coming from a family of myself and four brothers, so five boys, and then all of a sudden my stepmom's bringing in three girls and a boy. So now we're a family of nine, and now I have sisters, which is crazy talk. At the time, I'm just like, what is this world? And so, adjusting to that, and then moving all around is tough for a kid. And then my mom moves back to Utah. She got married in California and moves back to Utah. And so now my dad has a choice. He's there, established another career. He has, now my stepmom and other kids to think about. And so this is when decision moment happens where it's like, okay, do I stay in California with my dad, or do I go to Utah and live with my mom? Thing is, I have a younger brother who has Down syndrome. His name is Brigham. He is the man, the best wingman you can imagine. And but we've always had like a very close tie, very close bond. And so it was more of like just an automated response for me. It wasn't much of a decision. Although I had the freedom to make that choice, like I kind of feel like it just was made, I don't, not necessarily for me because I made that choice, but it was just done. And so I chose to be with him. And so I moved back to Utah to be with Brigham. And um, things didn't go so great for my mom and that husband. So they ended up getting a divorce as well. And so now I find myself in a situation where my dad's in California with my step family. I'm here in Utah with my, Down syndrome brother. And my mom is now working. So she's working pretty full time. Um, as more of part time, but the hours like didn't jive well with school. And so like when we're getting home from school, she's going to work and just tricky, like trying to balance it. But I pretty quickly found myself being like dad, like raising this boy with Down syndrome. And I'm just there, like I'm the one who's home with him, and I'm the one who's, you know, making sure that he's safe and fed and all of these things. And also like with the situation where now we have 9 family members, like there's a lot of mouths to feed, especially for and then my stepmom. Anyway, so again, we were not an affluent family. We did not have um, all of the things that maybe some of my kids get to enjoy today. Um, but it just like I didn't realize it back then. When you're a kid, like you're just like you don't step back from your life and think about big thoughts of like, is this normal? Like, is this life normal? Like, it's just like this is just your life. Like, this is what it is. And now, as I'm older, I step back and I look at that life and I'm like, dang, like that was not that was not normal. Um, but I think what that has done, that's a long way to say like it's really impacted that kind of my personality, my identity, and kind of that husband father type focus, where I learned in therapy recently like that almost everything I do that I really care about derives into wanting to be a good dad. The jobs that I choose, the projects that I work on, the time, how I spend my time, like ends up subconsciously or consciously being tied back to that. And by the way, like I'm not, this is, hopefully it doesn't come off as like touting or bragging or anything, like, but by no means is it that. It's just like that is just how my brain operates. Like it's just like kind of knee jerk immediate reaction is like that type of thinking, that those types of choices. And I think it comes back to like maybe not wanting the challenges that I experienced as a kid to happen, for my kids. And so, which has just led to this like kind of like a little bit of a wonky career. It's like taking some weird twists and turns, but I'm happy where I am. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the fact that you moved around so much, you had to play some different roles than a normal childhood, a normal child would during childhood. I think it's made you resilient. I see stories of people who go through that, and it's kind of the fork in the road. Like you can make this decision or make this decision, and you can let you have a victim mentality and woe is me, and we don't have it, everything that my neighbors have. My neighbors have all of these gaming systems and I have to go play in the lake, right? You looked at it as more positive, like this is awesome. This is great. And I grew up very similar in a small town of like 200 people. And like we would literally go up to the mountains and like kill rattlesnakes. Like I was in second grade, first grade when I remember doing this with my brothers. Like I would not send
You
my
killed your
12-year
first
old
rattle.
right now. Yes, and we would kill them and we would bring them back and we would skin them and put them on boards and we were pretty poor. I do remember, I remember eating snakes at one point. We had a small little farm with, goats where we had goat's milk and we had chickens and we had rabbits where we ate the rabbits and stuff. So like I can relate to to the small town life and to not having all the money that some of the friends or neighbors had. And but I can see you took the path that made you resilient, that made you want to be better, and I think it made you humble. It made you a good dad because of your humility. But I also love the approach that you took there at the end, where made you want to work so hard that your kids didn't have to go through the same thing. And I think generationally, a good dad does that. My dad did the same thing where he had his struggles as a child with his dad, and I think you can go back many generations in that regard. So, man, that's a cool story.
Yeah, little bit of background on kind of how things like ended up here today. It's kind of weird.
Okay, so now you're in Utah. You have your mom and your brother, and is that where you end up graduating high school? Is in Utah?
Yeah, so I went to Layton High, finished
Okay,
high school there. After high school, I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was down in Bolivia, South
nice.
America. I remember when I got the call, I was like, "Where's this?" Not the best in my geography.
I had that.
Um,
I had the same thing. I
yeah,
went to Peru, and I was like,
yeah,
"This is great. Where is it?" And then
yeah.
at my farewell, just kind of as a side note, my mom's like, "What do you want for the lunch after your farewell?" And I was like, "Well, let's eat what we're going to eat down there. Let's have tacos." And I don't know if anybody knows anything
Right?
about Peru, but I thought at that time all Latin America was Mexican food,
Mexico. Yeah,
and
Mexican
right,
food. Right.
and it wasn't. But I had the same thing where I was like, "This is awesome. Where is it?"
Yeah. I actually ended up, because of some civil unrest stuff, ended up ending my mission in Peru. So we were evacuated out of Bolivia, and I ended in Peru. So had a fantastic experience there. Loved every bit of it. Excited to go back. There, there's some things happening in like the next 2 years or so where we'll be headed back down to celebrate some things. So we're excited about that. And then getting back, I did, the BYU thing, went down to school there. A lot of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints find themselves either wanting to go to BYU or going to BYU. And I had a big thing for film, fascinated in film work and videography, did a lot of that in high school. That's where my kind of real entrepreneurship started. Is I realized that if I went to like the sporting events and filmed the sporting events, the ones I wasn't participating personally, if I filmed them and then put together like highlight reels, all the parents wanted to buy them. And so I would do these highlight reels for individuals and for the team, and I'd sell them. And like I'm telling you, man, like it was good money. And then I made one at the end of the year for all of the graduating seniors, and sold those and made great money on these like remembrance, end of year type videos. And that was awesome. And that's really where a lot of my focus on film and fascination started. And I just remember making so many videos and kind of those short, stupid films with all your friends. And so when I got back from my mission, I wanted to study film. I was working at BYU Independent Study as my first like real job. and I was on their film crew. And funny short little story was with Lindsey Sterling. I was working with Lindsey Sterling, if you know who that is, the violinist. So she and quite a few of our friends, we were working back in the cave, as we called it, because they literally just put all these video editors back in this little like old janitor's closet that they converted into an editing area. So I applied to the film program, and some people have heard this story I've shared in other scenarios. But I was rejected from film school, and I was like, oh, like I didn't expect to be rejected from film school because I had done so much film work, and I was working for BYU in doing film work. And so you can apply twice, and if you don't get in the second time, like they don't let you apply anymore. So I was like, oh, I guess I'll just go do more generals and then I'll apply again. So I end up applying again. And by this time, I had left BYU Independent Study and started doing full freelance in film work because it was paying 10 times better. And I was getting a lot of referral work. So I was doing a ton. And today we call it content marketing, video marketing, content marketing. Back then we didn't use those terms. Like content marketing hadn't been like created a name for it. Name hadn't been dubbed yet. And so I didn't know it, but I was doing a bunch of video and content marketing. And when I was rejected the second time, I was like, it's going to sound arrogant, but I was kind of blown away. I was like, what is going on? Like, I have my own film company, and like I'm successful. This is paying for school. And and I went and I spoke with the program director, and I just said, hey, can you at least like give me some like info or reasons why I'm being rejected here? And pretty much said, we don't think that this is the best use of your time. And I was like, first thought in my brain was like, I don't appreciate you telling me what I should do with my time. Like, how about I tell you and I'll pay you for it, what I want to do with my time? And then, with some wise words, they say, what you're going to come away with in this program is pretty much what you're doing now. And so if you really want to make the most out of your education, go do something that would augment what you're already doing. And then they recommended the BYU ad school. They said, go learn more about storytelling and about, target audiences and creating, strong relationships and connections with audiences. And I was like, that could be cool. And so I went and I checked it out, and I applied and I got in, and I loved it. The BYU ad program is incredible. It's fantastic. I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in some of the creative arts and storytelling, kind of the marketing route. Jeff Sheets, pioneer of the BYU ad program, and really just enjoyed my time there. Loved all of it. And I thought that coming out of school, I still had my film company, and was still doing that school and this company. And one of my clients was Deseret Book, and a mentor and lifelong friend now, Hunter Sabresos. He was the creative director. I was working on a project with Clayton Christensen, the great and the late, rest his soul. But Clayton Christensen, working on a project with him, so cool. Loved that project. And Hunter pretty much said, hey, like, we love what you're doing. This is really great work. Why don't you come work with us full time? At that time, I was just about to graduate. I had an offer to go work at a big ad agency in Chicago. And if you know much about Deseret Book, which is like pretty much religious literature or books publishing in more of a religious space, religious publishing in Utah versus Chicago ad agency, like that's a big difference. Like that is a very different life. And I'm talking with Hunter about this. I'm like, man, like I've got this big opportunity in Chicago. And he's like, you could do that. And he's like, but I'll tell you this, I came from that world, And knowing the type of person you are, that that's really not where you want to be. Not to say that you can't have a fantastic, wonderful career in the ad world and have still be a family man, family woman, family person. You can, but really knowing me, he's like, I think you should stay. And then he told me, I will make it worth your time. I can't necessarily like provide you the same means that you're going to get there, but I will make it worth your time. Really meaning that I'm going to spend time, teaching you, mentoring you. And true to his word, almost every day, an hour, maybe 2 hours was spent with him, learning from him mentoring me, not just in things of, marketing and advertising in the creative works and creative world, but also just like life skills and lessons. And it was really impactful for me. And at that time it was pretty formative. And so I didn't know that I needed a mentor at the time. And we talk a lot about that now, and I see that more on LinkedIn and a lot of people talking about that now. I do wish that I had intentionally been seeking out mentorship at the time, but I feel like a blessing to me that it kind of fell in my lap and in such a positive way, because I don't know if I could find many better mentors had I been intentionally seeking it out. And so had a really great experience there at Deseret Book. Unfortunately, they had some difficult financial times, and um, there was a reduction in force, and I was laid off about 11 months in, and I took that moment, and especially as you're starting your career, it never feels good ever to be laid off. But when you're first starting your career, starting to build your confidence in your capabilities, like it does not feel great to be laid off. Again, never does. But in this time, I'm thinking like, dang, like why was I laid off? And then I started looking around at the people who stayed, at the people who weren't laid off. And I thought to myself, why was I laid off, but these people weren't? And so as I started to kind of reflect and look deeper, self-reflection, but looking deeper into what are they doing that I'm not doing, and what can I do better so that this doesn't happen again? And I realized the majority of these people who got to stay have a much more direct impact on revenue, and at least the ability to show their impact on revenue. And so at that moment, I decided that I needed to go higher up the chain. And what that means to me is that in the creative world, the world of creatives, there's always someone, almost always someone above who owns a budget. And that budget owner is hiring, in this case, marketers, usually creative works, almost always. Gets kind of funnels up to a marketer. Marketer controls that budget, and the marketer shows more of a direct impact on revenue. So I realized I need to look at this like more of a real focus on marketing and not just advertising, which is kind of a subset or just one function or part of marketing. And so I said, all right, it's time for me to go all in heavy on self-education on uh, all things marketing, digital, social, uh, that I didn't get as much in my schooling and education at BYU, because it was so much focused on um, agency type work and creative briefs and campaigns, but not so much about search engine optimization and ideal customer profiles and analytics and all of, website management and all of these things. So I went heavy on this self-education, spending a lot of time, which at this time was lynda.com, which now we
Mm-hmm.
know as LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah.
But I was watching like every series and course that you could find at the time that had any like type of authority or credibility on marketing. So reading books, listening to they didn't really have podcasts so much then, but presentations from people, and just heavy self-education. And I was fortunate because I was able to pretty quickly bounce back from that layoff and find a job as a marketing manager for a company here in Utah. So it was Fieldstone Homes in the homes and construction world. And man, I don't know how I think so they saw something in me, because if you looked at my resume, like there's no real like good reason I should have been hired as a marketing manager at that point. But I wanted to live up to the role. And so I busted my butt in that role and started seeing some pretty quick success. And that was really the birth, by being thrown into it by fire. The birth of my marketing career really happened because of failure in college to get into film school, going into the ad program, and then being laid off at Deseret Book were all major contributors, which at the time all felt really crappy. Right, was specifically rejection from film school and then being laid off. Little did I know that there was a better plan in store, better direction for me. Call it divine intervention, call it universe being rad, whatever you want to call it, but leading me to the world of marketing that I had no expectation, thought, plan, desire to be in. And now, man, like it has been an awesome, awesome ride.
I sincerely hope that some up and coming marketers are listening to this podcast and understand your ability to tell stories is unlike anything I've ever heard. Like, I could sit here and just listen to you tell about your upbringing all day. Like, you're so good at telling the stories, but I don't think a lot of people, especially the younger generation, has this like self-reflection gene in them to be like, okay, this bad thing happened to me. Why and how do I make that better next time? I think a lot of people, too many people these days, especially with the social media influence, we've become these victims of like, this shouldn't have happened to me and I deserve better. And there's so many layoffs happening over the last 12 months. And I hear, from people on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people who take the humble approach and they're like, I get why the company's doing it. And I'm sad that I was looped into it. And then I see other people post about like, I don't deserve this. Please help me. It's just a different tone, right? And your ability to self-reflect throughout your life on some of these potentially negative experiences and turn them into something positive is really inspiring. And I hope that some younger people are listening to this and take that approach, as opposed to the victim side of things. So I appreciate you going into detail on that and helping us understand how you got into marketing.
If I can say, I appreciate that. Like that compliment is really meaningful to me. But I will have to say, like, I've had my victim moments. I remember driving I-15 from Point of the Mountain going up to Salt Lake, and like having a real like come to Jesus moment, if I can call it that, where like I was complaining, right? And I was like, I remember praying, maybe you could call it praying, just like kind of just vocally out loud complaining, like, why me? Like, I've done the things that I feel like I'm supposed to do. And if we can get religious for a minute, like, I'm saying my prayers, I'm going to church, like I'm reading scriptures. I feel like I'm trying to be a good person. And like I feel like I'm checking all the boxes where like bad stuff's not supposed to happen to me because I'm doing the good things, right? And like how like I've got a kid on the way, my wife's pregnant at this time, and like I'm feeling the weight of the world with this a house being built at the same time. So I've got this big commitment that I've made. So with this house being built, laid off, kid coming, wife pregnant, mouth and soon to be mouths to feed, right? And I'm just feeling like all of this weight, and I just kind of break down, and I'm just like, why me, man? Like I thought that like this wasn't supposed to happen. And I know, like, incredibly naive. But I remember really, really clearly just about to literally going up the hill. If you've driven I-15 from Point of the Mountain up to Salt Lake, I'm going up that little hill to go up and over around the rock quarry there. And I remember this thought, this feeling, inspiration, whatever, come to me, and it pretty much is. I don't know. Maybe this is kind of personal how this all unfolded, but pretty much is like, are you done? Like, are you done yet? Like, because if you would just be still, and that's the moment. That's the thing that really, like, I come back to is, if you would just be still for a minute and reflect and think and see that I'm God and I can do things that you may not expect to unfold in the way that they are. And as you know, again, I apologize for all the religion stuff here, but God works in mysterious ways. And I remember it was a humbling moment where I'm complaining and he's like, would you just be still and know that I am God? And while it may seem like a negative thing right now, like, there are great things that are working in your favor right now. So just like chill for a minute. And that, like, I think that was a really critical lesson for me that helped me to better form maybe a skill or an ability or a disposition to just be able to sit back and be like, okay, like, this is not how I plan things to go. So just chill, like, sit back, relax, think it through, and let's see how it plans out before you freak out, before you complain. Like, let's see how it plays out, because it's very possible, maybe even probable, that there are bigger things in store, that this failure you may see as a failure or as this really negative thing ends up being a really massive blessing, and maybe even repositioning or a redirection towards something greater.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to take away the impact or the feelings that you were having, because I know people who go through layoffs, they feel that, and it's okay to feel that, and it's okay
Yeah.
to feel like you hit rock bottom, and it's okay to feel like, why me? I think the important lesson is that, like, how do you react to that, right? Like, even like addicts, they almost have to hit rock bottom before they get better, and in there's opposition in life, in everything, and a lot of times, I can't remember if it was a podcast or a book that I read, but they went and surveyed like many thousands of people who have lost their job over their career. And they said, if you had asked them a week after they lost their job, they had said it's the worst thing that ever happened to me. But you ask them 5 years after they lost their job, and they said losing that job was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
So good for you for going and having that moment. And thanks for sharing the real, personal, personal moment that seems like you've probably had a couple of those in life that have made you who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, there's been a number of significant ones that I can think of off the top of my head, but it's a pretty significant takeaway for me in my life is just to realize that, like, there's going to be more of those. And, and I've learned that lesson, hopefully enough times to realize that the next time that something happens, cause it's going um, to chill, to, like, sit back, reflect, and wait for things to unfold before you freak out.
Great message. Uh, Pete, let's dive into what you're currently working on. What excites you when you wake up in the morning to get out of bed and get to work?
Yeah. This is funny because if you were to ask me this 2 years ago, it'd be really different than right now. It's like that question of, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? and maybe I'm in a midlife crisis. I don't know. But and maybe it's because I just finished my executive MBA at BYU. I think that those types of experiences cause you, or maybe encourage you to reflect on your situation, um, and so where I'm at in my life right now, life and career, and just kind of like how all of those blend together, personal, everything, family, is how am I using my time in a way that connects to my personal values, but also to what I really care about and what I enjoy. For so many years, I have been making millions and millions of dollars for other people and for other companies. And in a lot of those situations, like I've enjoyed my career. I've had a lot of growth opportunities and learned a lot of things, had a lot of fun. Um, but like, if I were to die tomorrow, and to think about, am I really happy with the things that I'm doing right now in my career? Can I say yes? Like, can I say like I'm really happy with this? And so that kind of mentality that I've really been trying to adopt over the last couple of years has taken me down like some kind of maybe non-traditional paths and non-traditional formats. Um, I don't I don't share this often, and I don't throw it out as any type of like braggadocious thing. But my uncle started Skull Candy and was a co-founder of Stance, um, Rick Alden, and he once told me, he said, "Focus your career on things that will take you to the places you want to be." And I've been really trying to take that advice. And when he elaborated a little bit, he said, I knew that Skull Candy would take me to the mountain to go snowboarding, or to the beach with Stance. Like, I knew that these things would take me to the places I wanted to be, doing the things that I want to do. And so recently, I've been kind of making some adjustments to my career and to the things that I'm doing. In fact, if you go to on LinkedIn and see some of my posts right now, you may like look at it and be like, "What the heck is going on?" And like with you, like you seem to have a lot of stuff happening, a lot going on. And to be honest, I do. I've got a lot. I'm exploring and experimenting with a lot of different things to see which ones I enjoy the most. And so I'm working on a fintech with Parlay. That's like my main day job. Turns out that fintech is not as enjoyable as you may think. I still love it, and it's still growing, and it's still moving forward. But also, I'm exploring some other things. I'm doing this thing for a client. It's more fractional CMO type work. I'm helping a company launch called Business Bricks, which is essentially custom Lego sets for businesses. So it's like Lego for the B2B world. And it's been freaking awesome. And I've had so much fun doing this. I get to pull out all of my analytical marketing skills as well as my creative, and to like the full extent of all of those capabilities in such a way that I've never experienced before in the B2B world, and it's just fun. It is so fun. And so when like I like doing parlay stuff, but business brick stuff, like I have a lot of fun with that. And then I'm working on um, the Silicon Slopes marketing chapter. One of the things I find a lot of fulfillment in is helping bring people together, help them build connection, relationships, and in Utah, especially to help. Support and build this community of marketers. We're about just over 1,300 marketers now, and growing, and I'm really excited about the momentum of that. We just did our first Silicon Slopes Marketing Summit this last year in April. And the whole purpose of that was to take all of the money that came, the proceeds from that event, reinvest it back into the chapter, where 100% of those proceeds goes to now fund the rest of our year of rad experiences, where before, every time we got together, I had to find a sponsor to pay for it.
Yeah.
It was
That's
so
tough.
frustrating to do that.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, and I don't get paid for it. So this is like a thing that, like, I feel like I get to give back to the community, and I enjoy doing it. But it was weighing on me. So this marketing chapter, or this marketing summit, I felt like provided a lot of value in the experience itself. But then now, like for example, here in today's the 10th, in 12 days, we're going curling at the Utah Olympic Oval. I've never been
Nice.
curling before,
Yeah.
but now I get to go do it with, all of the, marketing chapter, and have a great experience together, just having fun and escape the heat, and just, build relationships in a way that's not your typical, lunch and learn, show up, and yeah, I'm hoping that these experiences drive a deeper connection in a way that is more personal. Because when you think about the majority of the meaningful experiences you've had in your career, I would put money on the large majority, or large percentage of those meaningful moments, memories, experiences didn't happen at a conference table or in a classroom.
Totally.
Um, Probably more in a classroom than in a conference room, but the majority of them are happening in these, unique opportunities to connect on a deeper level. And so
Hmm.
that's what I'm trying to facilitate with the marketing chapters. Like, guys, let's pass up some of those like surface level niceties, and like,
Hmm.
let's be friends,
That's so
like
cool.
for realsies. And I believe that the spirit of Silicon Slopes here in Utah is that when we build together, we grow together. And you asked me near the beginning, what is the vision for Silicon Slopes in the marketing chapter? For me, in the way that I see it, it is, let's surround ourselves with all of the talent around us, and let's learn from each other. Let's build together and grow together. And I see so many incredible people here in Utah who are willing to give time and even resources to help other people to grow and develop, when literally there is no expectation for benefit to come back to them, aside from knowing that they have received so much good in their life that they're happy to be on the giving end. And like, it's just I see it every single day. And if you're connected to people here in Utah, and I believe it's one of the main reasons why Utah is one of the fastest growing economies, why we're producing so many unicorns, why we're so successful in business and entrepreneurship, is because we build together, and people are willing to support one another in that. And I don't live in other places. Like, I visit them, but I don't see the same type of investment and support systems like you have here in Utah. And I think it is such a blessing to live here, to work here, to grow here, to be here, and I'm just so grateful for it.
Yeah, the focus in Utah is a lot different too. I just got back from Atlanta. I went to a podcast summit last week. And while the summit was amazing, so much energy, so many good speakers, lots of good takeaways, which a lot of that I would love to get that sort of energy to some of the Utah conferences. But the podcasts that a lot of the people who came to the summit, they're completely different topics, and they're valid and they work for them. But like, for example, there was a handful that were like, let's do their podcast is around like handbags. And there was a podcast around let's see, there was a podcast around different clothing brands and a podcast around, a different issue in a community and stuff. And I think about Utah. I was thinking about this the whole time I was out there. The podcasts are about businesses. They're about leadership. They're about growth. They're about charity. They're about like the podcasts that come out of Utah are focused on making things better in the business world. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said so many unicorns come out of Utah. My wife and I were just talking about this the other day, where you scroll through social media and there's like a new business or a new viral sensation or whatever, and you dig 3 levels deep and you're like, oh, from Utah, no surprise. Oh, that one's from Utah, no surprise. And when I go to California or I go to Atlanta and I'm telling people, here's where I live near Lehigh, which is considered Silicon Slopes, the next Silicon Valley. They're like a lot of people are like, I've actually heard of that. And isn't that where Adobe is? And isn't that ancestry.com? And is it like they know that we have these billion-dollar companies here in Utah
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of up and coming billion-dollar companies here in Utah. And it's such an exciting time to live here and be a part of it and be a part of the marketing chapter. I've been on the panel of some of the AI conversations. I've been to a lot of the trainings and stuff and the lunches that you guys put on, and it's a phenomenal atmosphere. And I love the idea of taking it to the next level, almost like a business courtship, where when you go on dates, you can only learn so much about somebody at dinner. But when you go and do miniature golf or you do
Yeah.
bowling or something where there's more emotions and frustrations and room to be silly and stuff like that, you create a different bond with those people when you're out like that. So that's exciting. That's going to be a fun future for the Silicon
Yeah.
Slopes marketing chapter.
There are very few people who know this. I haven't announced it yet, haven't really shared this yet. One of the things I'm working on right now is it's an experience design company. Something that I'm doing with my wife and a friend of mine, Tyler Jennings. We're working on this, and it's all centered around facilitating experiences that drive a specific outcome with real focused intentionality. And what I mean by this is you can hire any event company to help you put on a conference or any type of like employee event, whatever, parties, activities. But what I see most companies and event planners, what they do is they plan these fun, memorable experiences, but rarely do they bridge the gap between memorable and meaningful, or even better, transformational, with that focused intentionality, with specific using frameworks in science and psychology to take it beyond something that's just memorable. That because what we typically do is we will and what I see most organizations, what they do is they will plan maybe it's an onboarding, employee onboarding or customer onboarding or a president's club or whatever. They plan an experience that's going to be fun, it's going to be cool, it's going to be positive, but for it to actually move past a level of being memorable to being meaningful and even transformational, there are specific things that need to happen, and there's more work that needs to take place to ensure that those things, that your desired outcome is going to happen. And so we stop at memorable, and if it becomes meaningful, and that's like a whole nother podcast and a whole nother discussion. We could talk for a long time about that, but it ends up being by chance. And you're lucky if it continues to surpass and evolve to become better than just something fun, something cool, something memorable, but to become something meaningful or transformational towards a specific goal. So, for example, if I say to you, okay, you're going to do an employee onboarding. Cool. Why are you doing the employee onboarding experience? Oh, because I want these people to be excited about working for our company and to feel like they're getting, kicking off well and starting on the right foot. It's like, cool, but why? Oh, well, we want them to feel valued and excited about their job, to feel pumped up and happy with their decision to join the company. And it's like, okay, well, why do you want to do that? And and it's like, well, we want them to perform better. Like we want them to perform well, and we want to retain that talent. Okay, so now we're getting to your actual desired outcome for that onboarding experience is you want to retain them and you want them to perform well, right? Which ultimately leads to revenue. Okay, cool. What's the price? What price tag would you put on that? Like how would you value your people feeling excited about their job and retaining them and them being prepared and performing well? What's a price tag that you put on that? And most people have a really hard time figuring out how to put a price tag to that because they'll say something like, oh man, like that's priceless, like that's really valuable to us. And it's like, cool, what are we going to do? Like, what are your KPIs? How do you measure if this thing that you're doing is successful? And then it's actually like bridging that gap between your onboarding experience and actually reaching these outcomes. Because what it takes is designing all of the touch points, all of the micro experiences within the macro experience to actually achieve that certain thing. And that's what I'm really pumped about with this company we're working on is we're not event planners. I mean, we could be your event planning company. We don't want to be. We are consultants that will work together with your event planners to map out the touch points and intentionally design the micro experiences that are going to intentionally lead you to your desired outcome. Because right now, what you do is you just say, cool, we're going to have an onboarding experience. We're going to go start off with some sort of training. Welcome to so-and-so company. We're going to have a lunch. We're going to have some more training. Then we're going to go out for some fun activity. And then after that activity, we're going to go to dinner and hopefully everybody has a good time. And while they're there, they're connecting with each other, building relationship. And sure, that is a memorable experience. They're going to remember it. It's going to be positive, and it's going to have some of that impact that you're looking for, that they're excited about their new job. Okay, but what are all of the things that you're intentionally doing and designing to ensure that you reach those results? And we don't typically do that. We stop there. And one, it's because we don't have the education. We don't know. It's not that we're not intelligent. It's that we don't have the frameworks and methods to be able to actually design those micro experiences that are required to reach that desired outcome. And then two, it's really hard. It takes a lot of work. And we'd rather just say, let's simplify and let's just go have a good time. And then, hopefully it turns out. But we don't actually put in the real work to design it so intentionally that you have a much higher likelihood and chances of reaching those outcomes. So that's what we're working on right now, and I'm so excited to be bringing my wife into this because she is so fantastically good at this, and to be working with her. We just were working this event in Las Vegas a couple of days ago, and working by her side it's some couples can't do it, but for us, like, this is the first um, major event that we worked on together where we were both on site, and it was like a career high for me. And like, I am so excited to be doing more of this with her. So that we don't even have a name for the company yet. It is that new. But it is, I'm excited about it. And really what I'm hoping to do is to help individuals, families, organizations, whoever, take these experiences that they're hoping to plan and create activities, whatever, and to help them take them to the next level to actually reach an objective or goal or an outcome, with much more likelihood that they're going to be able to tie, not only to actually reach those outcomes, but be able to tie those experiences, those activities to the outcome, and see how those KPIs are, you're actually meeting them and being able to measure them better.
I think it's brilliant. I think there's a need in the market for it, even though some people might not see it maybe from a budgetary standpoint. But I mean, I remember I was at Young Living for almost 8 years, and when I ended, I had 45 people on my team. I switched departments multiple times. I went through hundreds of interviews, hundreds, probably over 100 onboarding experiences throughout the 8 years. And not just that, but like having experiences throughout the year to help the morale of the team. Like we did, I would try to budget it out and plan where we had some fun, just memories, right? We did
Mm-hmm.
some meaningful charity. We went to a nursing home and did some weeding and cleaning inside. And so we did some charity work, and then we did some fun ones, and then we did some training where we would hire some people to come in and train us on specific, maybe leadership topics or stuff like that. And it was always just me and like what I called my party planning committee, which I loved. I love them. They did so much homework and stuff, but it was hard to find what you're talking about, the meaning behind it. I was like, okay, I can't justify
Yeah.
this much money for fun. So we have to tie some meaning
Yep.
behind it. And so I think there's a gap, even though people don't see it yet. Hopefully they do. And if you explain any of your ads, you're welcome to use this on your ads, because that was a great explanation. But if they hear it from you, like you just told me, and I'm in that position again, I'm going to invest in your company to have you come in and help create those meaningful experiences that help the morale of the team, help the retention of the team, and really tie back to the revenue eventually.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, man. I've been working kind of some freelance consulting with a organization called Beta Experiences, and I've watched firsthand as they have helped facilitate and design experiences like these, that have had just such so much more meaningful impact. And in fact, they're kind of partners of ours, and where we'll be working together. But I'm just, this is some of the things that I'm really passionate about, of that experiences. And really, my opinion, Eli, is that marketing itself is all about experience, because your experience influences your mindset. And then now we're getting into Arbinger Institute stuff, where if you've read Anatomy of Peace, or the outward mindset, your mindset itself influences your behavior, and your behavior influences the results. But before you actually get to mindset, it's all about your experiences of life influence how you think. It influences your mindset. And so we know that a brand itself is just a perception. It's how people view you, how people think of you, how they feel about you. But that perception is driven by how they experience you. And so, really, marketing is all about multiple micro experiences that make up a larger brand perception. And so, it is. How I see marketing, it really ends up being coming back to real intentional experience design. And those who do it best are those that intentionally design with, we hear about brand continuity. We hear about, just like we say, being on brand, but each of those brand touch points, it's are orchestrated like a symphony, right? They're all part of what Matt Durden calls the experience scape. and all of these different elements that marketers play with to influence that overall perception. And so I'm excited to take some of these marketing skills that I've learned and these storytelling skills, and now take it, hopefully, to help people build more, stronger connections and reach, more desired outcomes with more certainty and intentionality.
I think that's a perfect segue into the tactical section of this podcast. If I'm a business owner, a lot of the listeners are business owners, up and coming marketers, maybe business owners that don't necessarily, they don't have an in-house marketing team. They don't have the money or the know-how to hire an agency, and it's just kind of them doing it themselves. Yeah, if you were to give, one to three different pieces of advice to them on how they can elevate themselves online, what would that look like?
First, I'd say, when it comes to targeting, you have to know who you're selling to. And if you're brand new, it's a lot harder because you don't have historical data to look back at and be able to say, here are all of our best clients. Let's try to understand from both a like firmographics and demographics of these buyers and these companies to better understand who we should be selling to. So like a two-part answer to that. One, if you're brand new, you need to be good at research. And if you don't have any customers yet, you need to make sure that and this is going to require more like diving deep because we won't have time to talk about it here in this podcast. But your product market fit needs to be on point. You need to actually be solving something so important to people that they really genuinely need you. And not a lot of entrepreneurs, they start a company and they're like, look how important we are, look how cool our product or service is. And it's like, yeah, it's cool, but they can live without you, right? Like how can you solve a pain so heavy that they can't live without, that they need to go buy from you right now? So that's one thing, is like, do your research, make sure that your product market fit is on and that you're selling to the right people. Because if you're out pitching and selling to the wrong people, you're spinning your wheels, and it could end up driving your business into the ground because you spent so much time on the wrong people. If you're a more established company, you've got a couple of months or maybe years, and you have customers, please go through your CRM. If you don't have a CRM, get a freaking CRM. There's an awesome deal for startups to work with HubSpot. You can get it up to 90% off. So go do a Google search for HubSpot for startups, and then go through all of your historical data on all of your best customers. And you need to understand, what is the size of the company? What is the head count? How much revenue are they doing? What industry are they in? You need to look at why, you need to be doing more of that research of some of that primary qualitative research. Why did they buy from you? Ask them, go talk to them. Some of those first customers that you have, they are more than willing and happy to help your company grow. So go ask them. Every touch point you have, it should be designed meticulously by mapping out what that experience flow looks like. Like if they find you on, through Google or for TikTok or wherever they're finding you, where does it take them? What is the experience at the next phase? What is the experience at the next phase? And so on. So map out the customer experience or the prospect experience, map it out really well, and try to really understand what are they thinking and feeling at every stage here, and how can you make that experience really easy, really simple to consume and understand, and give them what they want really fast. A quick example of this is, so many B2B companies don't put pricing on their website. And they don't put pricing on their website because they want the prospect to contact them for pricing. You see it on all the pricing pages, is contact me for pricing. Guess what? They don't like it. They want to know the pricing is before they commit to you. And then you're like, well, Pete, that's going to kill all of our leads. It's not. What's going to happen, you are going to see a drop in your leads, but what you're doing is you're disqualifying buyers who don't have the budget to buy from you. And you say, oh, well, if we're good salespeople, we'll just be able to sell through it. And it's like, bro, I don't care how good you are at selling. If they don't have money in their bank account to actually buy from you, your awesome sales pitch and your incredible slide deck is not going to magically turn, straw into money in their bank account, right?
Right.
Like
Yep.
it just doesn't work like that. And so you're not going to magically make money appear that will qualify them to buy from you. So
Mhm.
stop spinning your wheels, meeting with people that can't afford to pay or to work with you, and focus your time on those that can work with you. And then any time that you typically would have been spending with unqualified leads, go outbound. I know you hate that. I know most people hate the idea of outbound prospecting because it's like, ugh, blah, I can have
Mhm.
incoming leads that are not qualified. Um, or I can go outbound, and people will often choose the unqualified leads that are coming in over the outbound, hoping that they can convert them. They're going to get onesie twosie. They're going to convert some of them, but
Mhm.
it's because they actually were on the precipice or on the fence of being a potential customer or not. But holy cow, save yourself some more time in your day and go do a little bit of outbound, do some prospecting, send some LinkedIn messages, be cool about it. Don't be, cheesy or, greasy. Do some outbound and focus. If because ideally now you know who your ICP is on your outbound, your outreach, you're only reaching out to people who are legitimate potential buyers. So in my opinion, it's better to have, spend your time on fewer strong qualified leads and more time outbound prospecting than it is for the opportunity cost of meeting with unqualified buyers hoping to sell them, when you're missing out on opportunities to go outbound. The opportunity cost of that is way too high.
Yeah. Not to mention if they can't afford it anyway and you end up convincing them that they can afford it, their budget's not going to reflect that in the future. They're going to end up canceling with you. They're going to get yelled at by their boss and they're going to leave a bad review. And they're not going to refer anybody to you because you were the pushy salesman either, right? So it doesn't help, planting that positive seed for later on when that person goes to another company and actually does have a budget. They're not going to come to you at that point because you pressured them into something that they weren't ready for.
Yeah. And that's more on the B2B side. On the B2C side is just experiment like mad. Like go figure out, you've got a lot of levers to pull and a lot of like tools to work with. Go figure out which ones work the best. And it takes time and it's hard. But be a scientist. That's what we are. Marketers are scientists. Go experiment, see what stuff works and what stuff doesn't work. And it sounds like an oversimplification, but it really is that simple when it comes. I mean, you're going to spend a lot of money and you spend a lot of time. And it's going to be hard, but it's just about figuring out what are the things that work for you, what are the things that aren't, and just because it works for somebody else in a different industry doesn't mean it's going to work for you, or just because you're crushing it on, say, um, I don't know, like TikTok doesn't mean that somebody else in your industry will be able to replicate it, right? We all have different skill sets. We all have different capabilities and we all have different products, even if they may be similar or very similar. Um, it really is experimenting with what is more unique to you and your company and what is working for you and what's not.
Use the scientific method, right? Like it works in
Yep.
marketing as well.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Pete, where do you see the future going in marketing?
I think I see it, with a, heavier focus on experiences. Um, we we value experience. This is my opinion. We
Yeah.
value experiences much more now than maybe we have in the past, or maybe it's
Mhm.
always been this way. But it's like there's more science, and research around it now that makes it more clear, more data on that. But especially with AI and all of the digital tools that are creating, a uh, we talk about mass personalization through these different tools and technologies. The more we introduce tools, technology, and artificial intelligence, we are going to um, have this like deep desire for more human connection. And so I believe that there are a lot of efficiencies that AI is going to, I mean, we know this is going to continue to drive, but I believe that those who are really focusing more on personal human connection and more genuine interactions, experiences with people that build relationship in a more authentic way. I think that those are the people who are going to win. So use your tools in your tech, leverage AI, be careful with it. Don't overdo it. But really like do everything customer service and just overall the customer and prospect experience all around. If you can provide a superior experience, you're going to win all the time. And it is the better experience, not just with your product, but also with your website and how people can find the information easily, or with the when people call in because they have a problem, like the way that you treat them and how you resolve things, right? If it's just it's like calling, and if you're going to have to call and wait for an hour to talk to a human, or if they're talking to an AI that doesn't actually like really be able to solve their problems, like again, genuine, authentic human interaction that is a superior experience. I think that's where we're going.
I think you're right. And I think that we're like at the precipice in the middle. If you look at the past, COVID, put us all into our houses, and we're coming out of that now, where it's like I'm craving personal, experiences, and then the future AI coming from this way. It's almost like the past and the present are coming together, saying right now everybody needs that experience and that personal touch. So spot on, man. Very cool. Well, at the end of every podcast, I ask two different questions. So the first one is, if you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would that be?
I think I'd have to say, don't rush. Like, enjoy the day. And
Yeah.
I know I've talked a lot about experiences, but be intentional about each and every day, because it really might be the last. And if you can plan something that brings you joy today, ideally a couple of things, like make today count. And if you can do that every day, or at least a couple times a week,
Mm-hmm.
life's just going to be much more enjoyable. So like don't rush, don't be focusing so hard on selling more and trying to retire earlier. Like that stuff, like it'll be a byproduct, but what's really important is like, did you enjoy today? Like if you had to do today over, would you do it the same way, or would you
Yeah,
not? So like don't rush it, and plan your day, design your day to be a good day.
I like that. Design your day. Don't just go with whatever comes. Design it. Be proactive, just like you were talking about in the beginning. If what podcast, books, or leaders currently inspire you?
Oh man, trust is really important to me. Stephen M. R. Covey's had a lot of focus on some of his works recently. Um, so I've really enjoyed his books, the Speed of Trust being one of them. I love all of the Arbinger stuff, the Anatomy of Peace, Outward Mindset. Matt Durden, I recently took a course from him. He wrote a book called Experience Design. There's also Power of Moments, the Experience Economy, are a couple of different ones that I'm putting a lot of focus on right now. And I guess bringing this kind of full circle back, kind of where it started, being a dad and husband. It's not just stuff that we do in our work, right? In our careers. Like these are things we should be learning and applying to every aspect of our lives to live and lead an intentional, well-rounded, complete life. You can't separate yourself. You can compartmentalize, but like the Eli that I'm talking to now is going to be the same Eli that goes to have dinner with his family tonight. And, but I think with that, David A. Bednar once said that um, the idea, and this is paraphrasing, but the idea of balance, or not balance. What was it? Yeah, maybe it was like work life balance is like almost a fable, like it's like almost unattainable. And he gave an example of like an acrobat type person, a performer spinning all these plates. Like you can only keep up a certain amount of plates at any given time, and you can only give focused attention to any one plate at a time. And while you leave one to go and spin another, and that other one you just left begins to wobble, right? You can't balance it all at once to keep them all spinning at the same rate. Like when you're at home, be at home. And when you're at work, be at work. And in that action, in the act of being immersed in where you are and who you're with at that time, you are neglecting everything else, right? um and like that's okay. And it sounds weird. It's like, oh, you're neglecting your family, and like not necessarily to that extent, but like when you're at work, like be at work, and like be immersed and focused on the people and your jobs. Like be careful not to burn yourself out. Burnout's so serious, where like we have a hard time in this day and age of being able to check out. And you hear from, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for stuff like this, especially from a lot of the entrepreneurs in my circles who they work, a lot during the day, and then they go spend time with their families, and then they start working again at night, right? And it's like, to each their own. And some will say that's what's required in order for excellence, right? And it's just about like the culture of how you live your life, and is it worth it? Is it worth it to you, right? I'll be fast about this because I know I'm a little long-winded in this, but is Phil Knight in the book, I believe the book is Shoe Dog. I think that's what it's called. He talks about his son Matt, and how his relationship with his son Matt was rocky. And I think one of the direct lines was like, "I wish I was able to figure out the Matt equation." Or solve the Matt problem. His son Matt died early on, not early on, like too early, but earlier. I mean, it's always too early if a child dies before a parent. But his relationship with his son Matt was not where it was, like where he wanted to be. And I think about people who are building companies and spending time, really grinding and working hard, and putting so much time into these different things. What if you have a son or a daughter who passes away while you're building this company? You were spending so much time on this company. Like, will it be worth it then? Or is it only worth it if things went well and Matt didn't pass away, or whatever your child's name? Like, if they are healthy and continue to grow, and you're able to focus on your relationship with them later, maybe it's worth it then. But like, you have no insurance, you have no assurances that tomorrow you're going to have another day, or that the people that you love the most are going to be there. So like, will it be worth it then? Because I can almost guarantee all those people who are working 70-hour weeks, who end up being successful and their families are okay, if things switched around and they ended up losing a loved one during that time, the way that they evaluate the use of that time would be extremely different. I also think it's like, I don't know. I see entrepreneurs judging entrepreneurs, saying like, you don't have what it takes. I see VCs say like not investing in people, in founders, if they're not, willing to do what it takes. And really what it means is like to give up that time. And so anyway, for me, it's never worth it. It never will be worth it.
Yeah.
Even if I walked away with $1 bajillion total real number, walking away with $1 bajillion, if it means that, I lose out on incredibly important time with my kids that I'll never get back. I don't care if you get time with them later and now you have all that money to go do incredible things together. Those magic times when they're kids, you don't get that back. I don't care who you are. Like you're not getting those magic moments back in those special times. So you can convince yourself that you do, but it's, in my opinion,
they're special to you and they're special to the kids, even though you may think as a parent, the kids are so young, they won't remember this. You'd be surprised, even if they don't remember that one specific experience, they remember the feelings and the emotions that you gave them.
Yeah. And I believe that it's delusion for those who try to convince them otherwise, or people say, well, Pete, you're just not cut out for it, man. Like you don't have the right mentality to do what it takes to create $1 billion company or, to create a unicorn. And I'm like, I don't care. That's not where I place the things that are valuable to me. Mm-hmm. So I would much prefer having a mediocre business and a thriving family than I would to have a thriving company and a mediocre family.
Yeah. Such a powerful message, man. Pete, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, for taking the time to jump on and talk with me today. I've learned a lot about you personally. I've loved the storytelling. I've loved the lessons throughout your childhood. You're a good example to me as a business owner, as a father, as a husband. I appreciate those takeaways, and hopefully the listeners will get just as much value out of this as I have. How can people get in touch with you if they want to?
They can find me on LinkedIn. That's like the easiest place. I will apologize in advance if I'm a little bit slow on DMs. Sometimes they stack up and I get a little behind. And I try to check out at night. So limited DM time. Yeah. But anyway, if I'm slow, I apologize. I get back to everyone eventually.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
This has been fun. Thanks, Eli.
Yeah, you bet. And to all the listeners out there, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode today. Listen, I know how valuable an hour of your time can be, and for you to take that busy time out of your day and spend it with us, it really means a lot. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking and subscribing on whatever platform you're on. And don't forget to leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about the interview. Ask us questions. Let us know what other digital topics you'd like to hear about in the future. We're here to add value to your life and elevate your digital presence online. If you'd like some help doing that, reach out to me at fireusmarketing.com. See you on the next one.